Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Trading Secrets. This channel is for entertainment purposes only. For those of you who do not know, my name is Ali. I have over 20 years experience teaching accounting, economics, business and law through this channel. I'll be providing some stock analysis and a quick update on the $1 Million Challenge. So if anybody's not aware of this is a journey of investment of $1,000 to a return of $1 million over a period of 3 years using a strategic or compound return investing. So the objective is try to get 201 trades, each with a return of 3.5%. It's not 201 consecutive trades. We do take into account losses. So for further details about how to join us for less than $9 a month, information is available in the description below. In today's video, we're going to be looking at MMTLP, and in a FOIA request, we're going to have a look at how the SEC have made a huge FINRA admission. And we're also going to be looking at George Palikaras fighting back against the SEC with some very strong arguments. And we're also going to be looking at ticker symbol DRUG, which we've covered in the previous video and also been following in the Discord, also known as Bright Minds Biosciences. And this was up over 3,700% over the previous 5 days. So congratulations to everybody in ticker symbol DRUG. And before we get started, let's have a look at what's happening in the market. So from Reuters here, we can see the Dow Jones and the S&P ended the week at a fresh high, and this was mostly lifted by the Netflix earnings. So good news there. And we also know gold was hitting all-time highs. And in terms of the main areas here, we can see S&P 500 was up in excess of 5,800, and the Dow Jones was also up a record high. But what we're going to see now here is a huge week for earnings, and we can see it's extremely busy. And some of the ones that we will be looking at in the Discord include Verizon, Boeing, Tesla, UPS, Coca-Cola, amongst many others. And a quick reminder in terms of some of the other stocks that we were watching in the Discord last week. These were called out on the 16th of October, and that was nuclear energy stocks, obviously inspired by the Google deal, and also picked up in our live trading data and alert section with regards to a potential link with the AI industry and nuclear technology. So if we have a look at some selected nuclear stocks here, OKLO up over 112%, LEU 65%, SMR 36%, UEC 22%, NNE 19%. So let's see what happens in terms of these plays in the next week. Before we look at ticker symbol DRUG, another stock that we were looking at in the Discord was ticker symbol NUZE, and you can see here it was up over 546% at one time. And congratulations to one of the Discord members who made over $25,000 but could also have made more. So let's move on to have a look at the news with regard to DRUG, also known as Bright Minds. And from the press release here, we can see the stock was skyrocketing after news of the $35 million private placement. Again, this was also something that was shared in the Discord. And what we can see here in terms of this particular news, this led to an extraordinary surge in the stock price. Initially, it jumped approximately 100% with the announcement of this particular news. There was also FDA news as well that we shared in the Discord, and we can see here the FDA news was with regards to a phase 1 study with AI-driven data analysis. So again, good news there. And we can see the company revealed plans to issue shares at $21.70 with pre-funded warrants offered at $21.699. So obviously this was positive news. The stock then went up approximately 3,000%, which is quite staggering. And if we have a look at a post here from Unusual Wales, they stated here at one point it even rallied nearly 8,000% because it went up a lot higher, did come down, but finished the week up approximately $3,700. So at the start of the week, this was had a market cap of $4 million and peaked around $350 million. So let's have a look at one of the biggest candles I've ever seen in trading history here, and you can see that again those things are very rare. But let's have a look at the chart for the previous 5 days, and you can see here at one point on a high it even reached $79, but still up a staggering 3,707%. And finally, commiserations to the shorts, and we can see here from Mark Omega, if you shorted DRUG, you're going to be dead. Let's have a look at a post from Nicholas, who stated that the SEC does in fact audit FINRA but will not release the FSIO examination report. Gary Gensler is fully aware of FINRA's violations. So let's have a look at the letter addressed to Mr. Nicholas Ryer. And in this letter from the SEC, they state here, quoting Mr. Nicholas Ryer, and as saying, "I would like to see the audit documents. I don't believe the SEC is conducting adequate audits of FINRA per the FISO program." So that's the allegation, but what the SEC have stated in this request is that they are determined to withhold records. And further down, they also state that one of the reasons for this is they have considered the foreseeable harm standard in preparing this response. So obviously they do see harm happening by releasing this. Now, whether that harm is for the SEC or whether that harm is for FINRA, we don't know. They haven't clarified that. Next post here is from MMTLP Dog, who stated again with regard to the SEC and the claims against Berda and Palikaras. It states here the SEC claims that Berda and Palikaras stated a falsehood about counterfeit shares, and the SEC should be forced to show the trading data. So in this case that we're going to look at now in terms of a response, one of the potential outcomes, again, certainly depending on how George and John continue with the case, is they could say, well, give us the trading data and that will tell us whether you are right or wrong. But let's have a look at the response. So this is with regard to the pre-motion letter for George Palikaras' anticipated motion to dismiss. So it's the SEC versus Berda, and it also covers Palikaras. So in terms of the background, the SEC enforcement action against Berda and Palikaras arises from a novel theory that defendants engaged in a scheme to manipulate the market by intending to create a short squeeze, which the SEC fails to allege as materialized. There are claims against Palikaras based on 4 disclosure issues. So these are, first of all, investor conference, where there was a private discussion with a few Torchlight investors, secretly recorded, later discussed and circulated by others on social media. That was the famous audio call. Then there's also a tweet of athletic shorts with regard to burn the shorts, and that tweet there. And then this was with regard to truthful information about the dividend record date. So I'm not sure if the SEC are alleging that George was giving wrong dates, because I'm sure he wasn't. Then it goes on to see the SEC fails to plead scheme liability under sections 10B or section 17A. So the first point here, the dividend and the ATM offering were not shams and were also fully disclosed to the market. The dividend would not have registered or freely transferable and would be payable immediately prior to the merger closing. So remember, it would not have, it was not planned to be tradable. For a company known to have a significant short interest disclosure made it immediately clear that a short squeeze was a potential consequence of the dividend, and obviously there is precedent in history that in terms of overstock, so obviously that was a natural thing to say. Second point, the SEC improperly imputes non-party metamaterials and its board approval of the merger to Palikaras, but fails to allege he misled or improperly controlled Meta. So that's something that we're saying here is missing from the SEC's case. And again, it goes on to see the SEC fails to plead misrepresentation and omissions actionable under sections 10B or section 17A. And then in the next part of the letter, we can see the extent in terms of the SEC takes their position that public disclosures were inherently deceptive because they failed to disclose the intent for the dividend to result in the short squeeze. The SEC has attempted to impose a duty that is not recognized by the law. So in addition, the SEC actually alleges that Palikaras did disclose an intended short squeeze via the shorts tweet with that picture. So that's the allegation. They have a problem with that tweet, and they go on to say the SEC does not allege short tweet was false and misleading. The claim is merely based on the theory that certain social media users interpret it as Palikaras disclosing his intent for the dividend to result in a short squeeze but they are failing to state a claim. So remember, this is a typical defence also used by FINRA, where they were saying that there is no claim against us. So that's what George is now saying to the SEC, turning the table. So the third point here, the SEC admits Palikaras shared accurate information in the T+2 tweet. So that basically also implies that the SEC are also saying that the dates were accurate. So it also implies FINRA were wrong. Fourth point, the SEC attempts to paint Palikaras as the maker of the statements to an online audience with whom Palikaras never communicated. But the SEC also fails to allege how Palikaras had ultimate authority over a social media user's StockWhip post about the recorded call. So I believe it may not have been released with George's permission, but that's something that the SEC would have to prove. Fifth point, the SEC fails to allege that Palikaras off-the-cuff statements in the private discussion were material. So again, they have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, at least to make it carry some weight. Sixth point, private discussion statements are non-actionable puffery and statements of opinion not worded as guarantees. So that's the defence from George Palikaras. The SEC fails to allege Palikaras obtained money or property under Section 17A. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm fairly sure everybody knows that George Palikaras did not hold MMTLP shares. So if he didn't hold the MMTLP shares, he would not have benefited from any squeeze. The SEC fails to state a claim under Section 14A and also with regards to 14A Part 9, and then we're going to finish off here by having a look at the end. Palikaras will respectfully request a leave to file a motion to dismiss the complaint. So remember, when the SEC went after the Atlas Group, they failed miserably, and from reading this response, I think they're also on tricky grounds. And finally, if you would like to join us in the Discord and get live trading data, as well as daily stock alerts and weekly watch list, as well as some of the nuclear energy stocks that we'll be watching, details are in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned.